The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Chen walked to the center platform. Around him, representatives from 47 different species watched with barely concealed contempt. The humans were the newest members of the council, barely 3 decades since first contact, and many still considered them primitive warmongers. Chen's hands trembled slightly as he placed his datapad on the podium. The holographic display flickered to life, showing star maps of the Outer Rim territories. Red markers indicated the latest Krathic incursions, each one representing a colony world burning under plasma bombardment. Honored council members, Chen began, his voice steady despite the weight of what he was about to propose. The Krathic Empire has now destroyed 17 civilian colonies in the past 2 months. Over 4 billion sentient beings are dead. A chittering sound came from the insectoid Vextar delegation. Their translator box crackled to life. And what would the humans suggest? More strongly worded resolutions? Perhaps another trade embargo that the Krathics will simply ignore? Chen took a deep breath. We suggest we fight back, with everything we have. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds, clicks, whistles, growls, and synthesized voices all blended into chaos. The council chancellor, a towering crystalline being named Shardmind, raised one limb for silence. Light refracted through his body, casting rainbow patterns across the walls. The council has already deployed our combined defense fleets. Shardmind's voice resonated like wind chimes in a storm. The Krathics possess superior numbers and weaponry. Our simulations show a 78% chance of defeat in direct confrontation. Then we change the equation, Chen said quietly. A hush fell over the assembly. The Lycian representative, a floating jellyfish-like creature in a containment sphere, pulsed with bioluminescence. Explain yourself, human. What could your species possibly offer? You have been in space for less time than most of our offspring have been alive. Chen looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes, optical sensors, and sensory organs as he could. Before we joined the council, before we knew we weren't alone in the universe, humanity fought amongst itself. We had wars that spanned continents and oceans. We developed weapons so terrible that we nearly destroyed ourselves. We are aware of your barbaric history, the Vextar delegate interrupted. It is precisely why many of us opposed your membership. Yes, Chen acknowledged. But what you may not know is that we stopped. Not because we couldn't build worse weapons, but because we chose not to. When we reached the stars and found the council, we agreed to lock away our most dangerous creations. We signed the Treaty of First Contact, promising never to unleash certain technologies. Shardmind leaned forward, his crystalline structure catching the light. You speak of the sealed archives. The weapon systems your species refused to share specifications for. The Council agreed to your terms because we believed in giving humanity a chance to evolve beyond its violent past. And we have, Chen said firmly. But now innocent people are dying.
Children are burning.
The Krathics don't care about diplomacy or peace. They only understand strength, a new voice joined the debate. Commander Zix of the Thornian military caste, a reptilian warrior whose species had fought the Krathics to a standstill decades ago. What exactly are you proposing, human? That we allow you to break the treaty and deploy forbidden weapons? Chen pulled up a new display. It showed a single human vessel, sleek and black, unlike anything in the current fleet. This is the prototype for the Prometheus-class warship. It incorporates technology we've kept hidden. Not biological weapons, not planet killers. Nothing that violates council law and weapons of mass destruction. But it does use principles of warfare that the galaxy has never seen. Impossible, scoffed the Vextar. Our technology is millennia ahead of yours. What could humans possibly have developed that we lack? Chaos, Chen said simply. The council species fight wars with precision, calculation, and honor. Your tactics are predictable because they follow logical patterns. Humanity learned to fight dirty. We learned to be unpredictable, to sacrifice, to bluff and deceive. We learned that sometimes the only way to win is to convince your enemy that you're insane enough to do anything. The chamber fell silent again. But this time the quality of the silence had changed. There was an undercurrent of unease now, a recognition that perhaps the humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. A small, furry delegate from the Quillen Collective spoke up, their voice translator making them sound like a concerned parent. Ambassador Chen, surely you understand our hesitation. We have built a civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. What you're describing sounds like a return to barbarism. Chen's expression softened. I understand your fear. Believe me, most humans feel the same way, but the Krathiks have given us no choice. They see our mercy as weakness. Our restraint is cowardice. Every day we debate and discuss, more innocents die. He pulled up footage from the most recent attack. The hologram showed a Quillen colony world, its cities reduced to ash. The images were brutal, unfiltered. Chen watched as several delegates turned away, unable to watch. "These were your people, Delegate Furl," Chen said softly to the Quillen representative. 3 million of them, gone in a matter of hours. The Krathiks didn't even demand surrender. They just killed everyone and moved on. Furl's fur rippled with emotion. What guarantee do we have that humanity won't turn these weapons on the Council once the Krathiks are defeated? It was the question Chen had been waiting for. You have my word. You have Earth's word. But more than that, you have our history. Yes, we fought among ourselves. Yes, we created terrible weapons. But we also learned to put them down. We learned that some victories aren't worth the cost. The weapons we're offering to use are tactical, not strategic. They're designed to defeat armies, not exterminate populations. Shardmind's form pulsed with thought. The Council will need to deliberate. This is not a decision to make lightly. With respect, Chancellor, we don't have time for lengthy deliberations, Chen pressed. Intelligence reports indicate the Krathiks are massing for a major offensive. They're targeting the core worlds now. In 2 weeks, they'll be within striking distance of your homeworld, and mine. The chamber erupted again, this time with alarm rather than derision. The core worlds were meant to be impregnable, protected by layers of defensive stations and fleets. If the Krathiks had grown bold enough to attack them directly, the situation was even more dire than most had realized. Commander Zix stood, his scales reflecting the harsh chamber lights. I have fought the Krathiks. I have seen what they do to prisoners. If the humans believe they can turn the tide, I say we let them try. What do we have to lose? We're already losing. Our principles, said the Lysian delegate. Our identity as a peaceful civilization? Chen shook his head. No, you'll lose those things if the Krathiks win. At least this way you have a choice. You can choose to fight back. You can choose to protect the innocent even if it means getting your hands dirty. Shardmind raised his limb again. We will vote. But Ambassador Chen, know this. If the Council agrees to your proposal, humanity will bear the full weight of this decision. If these weapons of yours prove too dangerous, too uncontrollable, the Council will hold Earth accountable. Chen nodded solemnly. I understand, Chancellor, and I accept those terms. Humanity is ready to show the galaxy what we're truly capable of, for better or worse. The voting began, each delegate entering their decision into the secure network. Chen watched the tally climb, his heart pounding. Red for no, green for yes. The numbers crept upward, too close to call. When the final vote registered, the display showed the result. 24 in favor, 23 against. It had passed by a single vote. Shardmind's voice rang out across the chamber. By the authority vested in this council, humanity is hereby authorized to deploy its restricted military assets against the Krathic Empire. May the ancestors forgive us if this decision proves unwise. Chen bowed deeply. Thank you, Chancellor. I promise you won't regret this. Humanity will show the Krathiks exactly why you should never back a desperate species into a corner. As Chen left the chamber, he couldn't help but wonder if he'd just saved the galaxy or doomed it. The weapon humanity was about to unveil wasn't a bomb or a ray gun. It was something far more dangerous. Human ingenuity unleashed with nothing left to lose. Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, humanity's first unrestricted warship in over 30 years. Through the viewport, she could see the construction yards of Luna Station falling away as her ship broke orbit. The vessel hummed with barely contained power, systems that had been theoretical just months ago now fully operational. Captain, all stations reporting ready, her first officer announced. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo was an old friend, someone who'd served with Sarah since the early days of human space exploration. He looked as nervous as she felt. Take us to the jump point, Lieutenant, Sarah ordered, and patch me through to the fleet. Surrounding the Prometheus were 12 other ships, a mixture of human vessels and council craft. It was a small force, barely a fraction of what the Krathiks would have at the target location, but that was intentional. This wasn't about overwhelming firepower. This was about demonstration. The communications officer nodded. You're live, Captain. Sarah took a breath. This is Captain Martinez to all ships. I know many of you are uncertain about this mission. Some of you come from species that have never waged war the way humanity has. You're used to honor, strategy, clear rules of engagement. What we're about to do might seem chaotic, even wrong to you. But I need you to trust us. Trust that we know what we're doing even when it looks like we don't. She paused, gathering her thoughts. The Krathiks have been studying council tactics for decades. They know how you fight. They know how you think. But they don't know us. Not really. They're about to learn that humans don't fight fair. We fight to win. A response came through from the Thornian heavy cruiser Vengeance's Pride. Commander Zix's gravelly voice filled the bridge. Human captain, my crew is ready. Show us these unorthodox tactics of yours. Other confirmations followed, some enthusiastic, others wary. Sarah noted who responded quickly and who hesitated. She'd need to know who she could count on when things got messy. Jump in 30 seconds, Okonkwo announced. Target coordinates locked. We'll emerge at the edge of the Krathik-occupied system. Sarah gripped the arms of her command chair. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. We are entering hostile space with intent to engage. Remember your training and trust your instincts. The jump drive engaged and reality twisted. For a moment that felt like an eternity and an instant simultaneously, the Prometheus existed between spaces. Then they were through, emerging into normal space in the Daleth system. Immediately, alarms blared. The tactical display lit up with hostile contacts. 37 Krathik warships ranging from small frigates to massive dreadnoughts. They'd been orbiting the conquered world, stripping it of resources and preparing it for colonization. They've detected us, the sensor officer called out. Multiple vessels breaking orbit and moving to intercept. Good, Sarah said calmly. Let them come. Helm, take us toward the planet. Full speed, Okonkwo shot her a look. Captain, that's directly into their formation. I know. Communications broadcast on all frequencies. I want to make sure every Krathik in this system hears what I'm about to say. When the channel opened, Sarah spoke in clear, deliberate tones. Krathik vessels, this is Captain Sarah Martinez of the human warship Prometheus. You are in violation of Galactic Council law. You have murdered billions of innocent civilians. You have rejected all attempts at peaceful resolution. As of this moment, humanity is no longer asking you to leave. We're making you leave. The response came quickly, translated from Krathik battle cant. Foolish mammals. You are 13 ships against our armada. This will be a massacre. Sarah smiled, though there was no warmth in it. You're absolutely right. It will be. The Krathik formation moved to engage, their ships arranging themselves in a classic pincer pattern. They would try to surround the smaller council force and destroy it with overwhelming firepower. It was a tactic that had worked 100 times before against other council fleets. Captain, they're closing to weapons range. Tactical reported. 16 vessels forming the primary assault wave. Hold fire, Sarah ordered. Let them get closer. Helm, maintain current heading. Make them think we're making a desperate run for the planet. The bridge crew followed orders, though Sarah could sense their tension. Through the viewport, the Krathik ships grew larger, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. Energy signatures spiked as they prepared to fire. Captain, Okonkwo said quietly. We need to engage or evade. Not yet, Sarah whispered. Wait for it. The Krathiks opened fire. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds filled the space between the fleets. The council ships began evasive maneuvers, their shields flaring as they absorbed hits. But the Prometheus simply accelerated, driving straight into the teeth of the enemy formation. Now, Sarah commanded, execute Protocol Chaos 1. What happened next would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy. The Prometheus suddenly broke every rule of space combat that the Council species had established over millennia of warfare. Instead of maintaining formation, it spun wildly, its trajectory becoming seemingly random. It fired missiles not at enemy ships but into empty space. It broadcast false sensor readings in all directions. To the Krathiks, it looked like the human ship had malfunctioned. To the Council observers, it looked like madness. But Sarah and her crew knew exactly what they were doing. The missiles that had been fired into empty space suddenly activated secondary drives, changing course at impossible angles. They weren't targeting ships. They were creating a cloud of electronic warfare drones that flooded the battle space with false contacts. Suddenly, instead of 13 Council ships, the Krathic sensors showed hundreds. Their targeting systems are confused, the tactical officer reported with barely suppressed glee. They can't lock onto anything. Phase 2, Sarah ordered. All ships weapons free. Pick your targets and fire at will. The real council vessels, which had been following their own carefully orchestrated plan, struck, but they didn't fight like they normally did. Following human guidance, they abandoned traditional tactics. Ships that should have maintained distance closed to point-blank range. Vessels that should have protected their flanks exposed them intentionally, baiting Krathic ships into traps. The Thornian cruiser Vengeance's Pride performed a maneuver that would have been suicidal under normal circumstances, diving beneath a Krathic dreadnought and raking its underside with continuous fire. The Krathics, expecting the Thornians to retreat after the pass, instead found themselves facing a ship that simply stayed there, trading blow for blow, daring them to commit more forces. Meanwhile, the Prometheus had done something even more audacious. It had attached itself to a disabled Krathic frigate using magnetic grapples, effectively using the enemy ship as a shield. From this position it fired into the Krathic formation, and when they returned fire they hit their own vessel. "Captain, Krathic command ship is hailing us," communications reported. "They sound angry." "Put them through," Sarah said, checking her tactical display. Everything was proceeding according to plan, which meant it looked like complete chaos to everyone else. The Krathic commander's face appeared on screen, a mass of chitinous plates and compound eyes. "What manner of warfare is this? You violate every principle of honorable combat." Sarah laughed, actually laughed. "Honor? You want to talk about honor? You murdered 4 billion civilians and you're complaining about honor? Here's a human principle for you. All's fair in love and war. And we're not in love." She cut the transmission before the Krathic could respond. "Okonko status report. We've destroyed 8 enemy vessels, damaged another 12. They're breaking formation, trying to adapt to our tactics. Our ships have taken moderate damage, but nothing critical. The Krathics are actually retreating to regroup." Sarah nodded. "Good. That means they're thinking, trying to figure us out. That's when we hit them with Phase 3. All ships prepare for scatter protocol." The Council fleet suddenly broke apart, each vessel heading in a completely different direction. To the regrouping Krathics, it looked like a rout, like the enemy was fleeing in panic. Their commander made the fatal mistake of ordering pursuit, dividing his forces to chase down the fleeing ships. Except the Council ships weren't fleeing. They were repositioning. As the Krathic vessels spread out across the system, chasing what they thought were easy targets, they found themselves isolated, cut off from support. And that's when the Prometheus revealed its true capability. "Activate the Singularity minefield," Sarah ordered. Weeks before, human stealth ships had seeded this system with a weapon the Council had never imagined. Not planet killers or weapons of mass destruction, but something more subtle. Artificial micro-singularities barely larger than atoms held in stasis fields. When activated, they created gravitational eddies that pulled ships off course, disrupted jump drives, and made coordinated fleet actions impossible. The Krathic formation dissolved completely. Ships that tried to support each other found themselves pulled into uncontrolled spins. Vessels attempting to retreat discovered their jump drives wouldn't engage. They were trapped isolated exactly where the humans wanted them. "All ships weapons free," Sarah broadcast. "Take them apart piece by piece." The victory at Daleth sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Within days, footage of the battle had spread to every Council world, analyzed frame by military strategists who couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. The Krathic Empire, which had seemed unstoppable, had been humiliated by a force a fraction of its size. Admiral James Hawthorne stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's military headquarters, watching the holographic displays with a mixture of satisfaction and worry. Around him, his staff worked frantically, coordinating the deployment of newly authorized human warships across Council space. "Admiral, we have 17 more Prometheus-class vessels ready for deployment," his chief of staff reported. "Another 30 will be operational within the month. The Council has requested we prioritize defense of the Lycian homeworld. Krathic intelligence suggests they're planning a retaliatory strike there." Hawthorne nodded, his weathered face showing the strain of decades of military service. He'd been a young officer during humanity's last major war, before First Contact, before the treaties that locked away their deadliest weapons. He'd never thought he'd see them deployed again. "What's the status of Operation Misdirection?" he asked. A younger officer pulled up a new display. "Proceeding as planned, sir. We've leaked false intelligence suggesting our main fleet is massing at the frontier worlds. The Krathics have repositioned forces to counter a threat that doesn't exist." "Good. And the Psychological Warfare Division? Broadcasting on all Krathic military frequencies, sir. We're using the footage from Daleth, emphasizing the casualties, making sure every Krathic soldier knows what happened to their fleet. Morale in their military is reportedly declining. Hawthorne allowed himself a small smile. This was warfare the way humans had perfected it over millennia. It wasn't just about ships and weapons. It was about psychology, deception, making your enemy doubt themselves. The Council species fought with honor and logic. Humanity fought with everything, including the enemy's own fears. A chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The holographic display shifted to show Ambassador Chen, looking exhausted but determined. Admiral Hawthorne, I'm at the Emergency Council session. The reaction here is mixed. Some species are celebrating our victory. Others are terrified of us. The Vextar delegation has formally proposed limiting human military operations, claiming we're becoming as dangerous as the Krathics. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. We just saved 17 billion Lysian colonists from extermination, and they're complaining about our methods? It's not that simple, Chen replied. Admiral, you have to understand these species have built their entire civilization on principles we abandoned long ago. To them, what we did at Daleth wasn't just unorthodox, it was barbaric. They're asking questions like, what happens after the war? They're wondering if humanity can be trusted with this kind of power. Can we? Hawthorne asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Chen looked away from the camera, then back. I don't know, Admiral. I really don't. But right now, we're all that stands between the Council and annihilation. We can worry about trust after we've won. Before Hawthorne could respond, alarms blared throughout the war room. Red lights bathed the space as the tactical officer shouted, Admiral, massive Krathic fleet detected. They've bypassed the frontier worlds entirely. They're heading straight for Earth. Hawthorne's blood ran cold. How many ships? Over 300, sir. It's the largest fleet movement we've ever recorded. ETA to Earth orbit, 6 hours. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Officers scrambled to update defensive plans, calculate response times, coordinate with orbital defense platforms. But Hawthorne stood still, his mind racing. This was it. The Krathics weren't just retaliating for Daleth. They were going for the throat, trying to cut the head off humanity's military before it could fully mobilize. Chen, you're seeing this? Hawthorne asked. The ambassador's face had gone pale. Yes, Admiral, the Council is in an uproar. Half the delegations are demanding we send reinforcements to Earth. The other half are saying this proves humans are too dangerous, that the Krathics are only attacking because we provoked them. We provoked them? Hawthorne's voice was deadly quiet. They've destroyed 43 worlds. But we fight back once and suddenly we're the problem? I'm just telling you what they're saying, Admiral. Chancellor Shardmind is trying to organize a defense fleet, but it will take time to mobilize. You're on your own for at least 12 hours, maybe more. Hawthorne took a deep breath, forcing himself to think clearly. 12 hours. They had to hold for 12 hours against a force that outnumbered Earth's defenses by a significant margin. The orbital platforms were formidable, but they'd never been tested against an assault of this scale. All available ships are to return to Earth immediately, he ordered. Recall every vessel within jump range. I don't care if they're half repaired or running on backup power. If they can fly and shoot, I want them here. And somebody get me Captain Martinez. The communication came through moments later. Sarah's face appeared, the bridge of the Prometheus visible behind her. Admiral, we're already en route. ETA 4 hours. You heard about the Krathic fleet? Yes, sir. We're not going to make it before they arrive, are we? Hawthorne shook his head. No. Which means Earth's defense forces are going to have to hold without you. Captain, I need you to do something for me. When you do arrive, I need you to make them regret coming here. Sarah's expression hardened. Sir, with all respect, we're one ship. Against 300. I know the odds, Captain, but you've already proven that humans don't play by the same rules. I'm not asking you to fight fair. I'm asking you to fight smart. Make them afraid. Make them doubt. Buy us time. There was a long pause. Then Sarah nodded. Understood, Admiral. We'll think of something. The transmission ended. Hawthorne turned to his staff. I want every defensive platform at full readiness. Deploy all mines, activate all automated defense systems, and pull up every contingency plan we have for defending Earth. I don't care how crazy it sounds. As his officers worked, Hawthorne walked to the window overlooking the command center. Below, hundreds of people worked at their stations, coordinating the defense of humanity's homeworld. They trusted him to protect them, to make the right decisions. He hoped he was worthy of that trust. An hour later, the first Krathic scouts entered the solar system. They were probing attacks, testing Earth's defenses, gathering intelligence for the main fleet. The orbital platforms opened fire, destroying several scouts, but more kept coming. "Admiral, we're tracking the main fleet," sensors reported. "They're moving in a standard assault formation. They'll hit Mars orbit in 3 hours, Earth orbit in 4. Hawthorne studied the tactical display. The Krathics were being cautious, not rushing in blindly. They'd learned from Daleth that humans were unpredictable. Good. Caution meant fear. Fear meant they could be manipulated. "Activate Operation Last Stand," he ordered. His chief of staff looked up sharply. "Sir, that protocol is for worst-case scenarios. It involves civilian volunteers." "I know what it involves," Hawthorne said firmly. "And I'm not implementing the full protocol. Just phase 1. I want every civilian ship in the solar system to transmit active sensor pings. Cargo haulers, pleasure yachts, mining vessels, everything. Make it look like we have 10 times the ships we actually do. They'll see through it once they get close enough. By then it won't matter. We just need to slow them down, make them second-guess themselves. Every minute they hesitate is another minute for reinforcements to arrive." The order went out. Across the solar system, civilian vessels that had been fleeing toward the outer planets suddenly lit up their sensors. To Krathic detection systems, it would look like Earth had a massive hidden fleet, all powering up simultaneously. The Krathic fleet slowed, then stopped. They were analyzing the sensor data, trying to determine if it was a trap. Precious minutes ticked by. "It's working," the tactical officer said with surprise. "They've halted their advance. They're repositioning into a defensive formation." Hawthorne nodded. "Good. Now broadcast this message on all frequencies. I want every Krathic in that fleet to hear it." When the channel opened, Hawthorne spoke with the voice of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Krathic Fleet, this is Admiral James Hawthorne of Earth's Defense Forces. You've made a critical mistake. You assumed that by attacking our homeworld, you would break humanity's will to fight. You're wrong. You've done the opposite. Every human in this system is now your enemy. Every ship, every station, every person with access to a weapon is going to fight you with everything they have. And we're very good at fighting." He paused, letting the words sink in. "At Daleth, we showed you a taste of what humanity can do. But that was just a demonstration, a warning. Here, defending our home, our families, our planet, you're about to learn what we're really capable of. I'm giving you one chance. Turn around and leave. Because if you come to Earth, you'll face something far worse than advanced weapons or unorthodox tactics. You'll face humanity with nothing left to lose. And there's nothing more dangerous in the entire galaxy than that." The transmission ended. In the war room, nobody spoke. They all knew the truth. The speech was bravado, psychological warfare. If the Krathics called the bluff and attacked with their full force, Earth's defenses might hold for an hour, maybe 2. But sometimes in war, perception mattered more than reality. And right now, humanity needed the Krathics to believe they were walking into a trap. For 10 agonizing minutes, nothing happened. The Krathic fleet hung in space, neither advancing nor retreating. Hawthorne could imagine the debates happening on their command ships, the uncertainty, the fear of making the wrong decision. Then slowly the Krathic fleet began to move, but not forward. They were repositioning, forming a siege perimeter around the solar system. They weren't attacking. They were waiting. "They're going to lay siege," the tactical officer said. "Starve us out. Cut off supply lines, wait for us to weaken before they attack." Hawthorne nodded slowly. It bought them time. Not much, but enough for reinforcements to arrive. Enough for Captain Martinez and the Prometheus to arrive. Enough for humanity to show the galaxy one more trick it had been holding in reserve. "Send a message to all human ships," Hawthorne ordered. "Tell them the Krathics have blinked. Tell them we're going to win this. And when the Council fleet arrives, tell them humanity just defended its homeworld against impossible odds by being too crazy to predict." As the message went out, Hawthorne allowed himself a moment of relief. They'd survived the first test. But he knew this was far from over. The Krathics would regroup, analyze their intelligence, realize they'd been tricked. And when they did, the real battle for Earth would begin. But by then, humanity would be ready, and they'd have one more surprise waiting. Captain Sarah Martinez watched the Krathic blockade through the Prometheus's view screen, her mind working through impossible calculations. 300 enemy warships formed a sphere around Earth's solar system, their weapons trained inward, waiting. Behind her, the bridge crew maintained their stations with practiced efficiency, but she could feel their tension. "Captain, we're receiving Admiral Hawthorne's tactical brief," Okonkwo said quietly. "The siege has been in place for 2 hours. No shots fired, but they're scanning every ship that tries to leave or enter the system. Earth is effectively cut off." Sarah studied the data streaming across her displays. The Krathiks had learned from Daleth, adapting their formation to counter human unpredictability. They'd positioned their ships with overlapping sensor coverage, making it nearly impossible to slip through undetected. Any ship that tried would be identified and destroyed before it could get close to Earth. "Clever," she murmured. "They're not falling for the same tricks twice. They know we rely on surprise and chaos, so they've created a situation where neither can work." A transmission came through from the Council relief fleet that had finally arrived. Chancellor Shardmine's crystalline face appeared on screen, his usually calm demeanor showing signs of stress. "Captain Martinez, the Council fleet is prepared to engage. We have 78 ships, including several dreadnoughts. Combined with Earth's defenses and your vessel, we may be able to break through the blockade." Sarah shook her head. "With respect, Chancellor, a direct assault would be suicide. The Krathiks want us to attack. They've positioned their strongest ships at the most likely approach vectors. We'd lose half our fleet before we even engage their main line." Shardmine's form pulsed with frustration. "Then what do you suggest? We cannot allow Earth to remain under siege. Already panic is spreading through the Council worlds. If humanity's homeworld falls, morale will collapse." Sarah was quiet for a moment, an idea forming. It was risky, possibly insane, but that had never stopped humanity before. "Chancellor, I need you to trust me one more time. Can you keep your fleet positioned outside the system? I need the Krathiks to think they've won, that we're too afraid to engage." "Captain, I don't understand. What are you planning?" "Something the Krathiks won't expect," Sarah replied. "Because it's something no rational species would ever attempt. Prometheus out." She cut the transmission before Shardmine could object. Turning to her crew, she saw the mixture of curiosity and concern on their faces. "Okonkwo, pull up everything we have on Krathic military psychology," she ordered. "I want to know what they fear most. What keeps Krathic commanders awake at night?" Her first officer worked quickly, pulling data from human intelligence files. "According to our analysts, Krathic culture values order and hierarchy above all else. Their military structure is rigid, with clear chains of command. Individual ships never act independently. Everything is coordinated through their flagship." Sarah leaned forward. "Which ship is that?" "The Devourer, a heavy dreadnought positioned at the center of their formation. It's surrounded by at least 50 escort vessels. Getting close to it would be impossible." "For a normal attack, yes," Sarah said, her smile returning. "But we're not going to attack it. We're going to make them think we're attacking everything except it, and when they reposition to counter our assault, we're going to slip past and take out their flagship." The bridge fell silent. Finally, Okonkwo spoke. "Captain, that's a one-way mission. Even if we destroy the Devourer, we'll be trapped inside their formation with no way out." "Unless we're not alone," Sarah said. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Hawthorne. "Admiral, I need every stealth-capable ship Earth has. I don't care if they're military, corporate, or privately owned. If they can hide from sensors and carry a weapon, I need them." Hawthorne's face showed understanding mixed with horror. "You're planning to infiltrate the blockade." "Not just infiltrate. I'm going to shatter their entire command structure. But I need those ships positioned inside the system, hidden, waiting for my signal. Captain Martinez, you understand that if this fails, Earth will be defenseless. The Prometheus is our most powerful warship." Sarah nodded. "I understand, sir. But if we don't break this siege, Earth falls anyway. At least this way we go down fighting. And if we succeed, the war could be over." There was a long pause. Then Hawthorne nodded. "I'll get you your ships. Godspeed, Captain." The preparation took hours. 17 stealth vessels ranging from military scouts to civilian mining ships retrofitted with cloaking systems positioned themselves throughout the solar system. Each was equipped with whatever weapons they could carry and instructions to wait for Sarah's signal. Meanwhile, the Prometheus began its approach to the Krathic blockade, slowly openly broadcasting on all frequencies. "Krathic fleet, this is Captain Sarah Martinez of the Prometheus. I'm requesting permission to negotiate a ceasefire." The response came from the Devourer itself. The Krathic commander's face filled the screen, his compound eyes gleaming with what might have been amusement. The human who humiliated our forces at Daleth now comes begging for mercy? This is unexpected. Sarah forced her expression to remain neutral despite the rage boiling inside her. Not mercy. A discussion. Your siege will eventually starve Earth, but it will take months. Months where your fleet is tied up here, unable to expand your empire elsewhere. I'm offering you a faster solution. We are listening. Let the civilian ships leave. Evacuate Earth's population to Council worlds. In exchange, humanity will surrender its military technology, including the systems we used at Daleth. You get what you want, we save lives. She could see the Krathic commander considering it. The offer was tempting. Exactly the kind of logical compromise that Council species would make. But Sarah was counting on Krathic arrogance to win out. No, the commander said finally. Earth will serve as an example. When it falls, the entire Council will know the price of resistance. Your technology will be ours to study from the wreckage. But I am curious about one thing, human. Why come to us alone? Why not bring your entire fleet? Sarah smiled coldly. Because I wanted you to see this coming. She cut the transmission and shouted, now. The Prometheus surged forward at maximum speed, but not toward the Devourer. Instead, it headed straight for the weakest point in the Krathic formation, firing every weapon, launching every missile, creating as much chaos as possible. The Krathic fleet reacted exactly as Sarah predicted. Ships broke formation to intercept, converging on the Prometheus from multiple directions. The careful sphere began to collapse inward, creating gaps in the blockade. All stealth ships execute, Sarah commanded. Throughout the system, 17 hidden vessels activated simultaneously. They weren't heading for Earth or trying to escape. They were moving toward the Krathic formation, approaching the gaps created by the ships pursuing the Prometheus. The Krathics detected them too late. By the time their sensors picked up the stealth ships, they were already inside the blockade, moving through the chaos like ghosts. Okonkwo. Activate the virus, Sarah ordered. Before the mission, human cyber warfare specialists had created a specialized program based on captured Krathic communication protocols. It couldn't control Krathic ships, but it could do something almost as good. It could make them think they were receiving orders from the Devourer when they weren't. The stealth ships began broadcasting, each transmitting false commands to different sections of the Krathic fleet. Reposition to Sector 7. All frigates advance on the Council fleet. Dreadnought Group Beta returned to fleet staging area. The Krathic formation dissolved into confusion. Ships moved in contradictory directions, some following real orders from the Devourer, others following the false commands. Friendly vessels nearly collided as the carefully orchestrated blockade turned into a traffic jam. Meanwhile, the Prometheus drove deeper into enemy territory, taking hit after hit, but refusing to slow down. Its shields were failing, hull breaches appearing across multiple decks, but Sarah kept pushing forward. Captain, we're not going to make it to the Devourer, Okonkwo reported, his voice strained. We'll be destroyed before we get within firing range. Sarah nodded. She'd known this was a possibility. Then we improvise. Target the command ship with every missile we have left. I don't care if we can't reach it. I want them to think that's our objective. The Prometheus launched its remaining missiles. Dozens of warheads streaked toward the Devourer, and the Krathic flagship's escorts moved to intercept, creating even more chaos. What the Krathics didn't see was the stealth ship that had been moving along a completely different vector, hidden in the debris and sensor noise created by the battle. It was a small vessel, barely armed, but it carried something more valuable than weapons. Ambassador Chen sat in the pilot seat of that ship, his hands steady on the controls, despite never having been a soldier. Next to him sat Commander Zix of the Thornians, the warrior who had fought at Daleth. Ambassador, are you certain about this? Zix asked, his claws gripping the weapons console. Chen nodded. Captain Martinez is sacrificing her ship to create this opportunity. The least I can do is not waste it. Besides, humans have a saying, sometimes you need to sacrifice a pawn to take a king. The aftermath of the siege at Earth changed everything. Within days, the Krathic Empire's expansion ground to a halt. Fleets that had been preparing to strike at Council worlds instead found themselves recalled to defend their own territory. The capture of the Devourer and the death of High Commander Zrath sent shockwaves through Krathic space, triggering internal power struggles that further weakened their military cohesion. Ambassador Chen stood in the council chamber once again, But this time the atmosphere was different. Where before there had been contempt or skepticism, now there was something else. Wariness, perhaps even fear. The Council recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth, Chancellor Shardmind announced, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber lights. You have requested this session to discuss the terms of the Krathic ceasefire. Chen nodded, approaching the central platform. He carried a datapad, but he didn't look at it. After everything that had happened, he knew exactly what he needed to say. Honored members, 3 weeks ago, humanity was authorized to use its restricted military capabilities. Since then, we have achieved what many said was impossible. The Krathic advance has been stopped. 17 occupied worlds have been liberated. The enemy's military leadership is in chaos. And most importantly, not a single council world has fallen since humanity entered the war. A ripple of acknowledgement moved through the chamber. These were facts no one could dispute, but Chen could see the tension in the delegations, the unasked questions hanging in the air. I know what you're thinking, Chen continued. You're wondering what comes next. You're asking yourselves whether humanity can be trusted, whether we've become as dangerous as the Krathics, whether inviting us to use our weapons was a mistake that will haunt the galaxy for generations. The Vextar delegate rose, his insectoid body clicking with agitation. You voice our concerns quite plainly, Ambassador. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that frankly terrify us. You board enemy flagships during battle. You deceive and manipulate with such ease that it suggests you've had extensive practice. You fight without honor, without rules, without restraint. How can we be certain that when this war ends, you won't turn those same weapons on the Council? Chen took a deep breath. This was the moment he'd been preparing for. The question at the heart of everything. You can't be certain, he said simply. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in their various languages, translators struggling to keep up with the overlapping protests. Shardmind raised his limb for silence, but it took several minutes for order to be restored. You admit that humanity poses a threat to the Council? The Lysian delegate asked, their containment sphere pulsing with agitation. No, Chen said firmly. I admit that you can't be certain of our intentions based on observation alone. Because certainty isn't something that exists in warfare. Every species in this chamber has weapons. Every species could theoretically turn on its neighbors. The only thing preventing that is choice. And humanity chooses not to. He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. Members of the Council, I want to show you something. This is what we could have done. The display shifted, showing simulations. Massive fleets. Weapons that made the Prometheus look primitive. Technologies that could crack planets or extinguish stars. The Council members watched in horrified silence as the simulations played out. These are designs we completed decades ago, Chen explained, before first contact, when humanity was alone and afraid of what might be out there in the darkness. We built weapons capable of destroying civilizations because we were terrified of being destroyed ourselves. We had the capability to become conquerors, to spread through the galaxy like a plague, taking what we wanted by force. He closed the display. But we didn't. When we met you, when we learned about the Council and its principles, we made a choice. We locked these weapons away. We signed treaties limiting our military development. We chose cooperation over conquest, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. Commander Zik stood, his reptilian features serious. Ambassador Chen, I fought alongside your people at Earth. I watched human Marines board an enemy flagship in the middle of a battle. Something my species would consider a death sentence. They didn't hesitate. They didn't question. They simply did what needed to be done. That kind of dedication to duty, that willingness to sacrifice, it's admirable, but it's also terrifying, because it suggests humans will do anything to win. You're right, Chen acknowledged. We will. But winning doesn't always mean destroying your enemies. Sometimes it means turning them into friends. Sometimes it means building something better than what existed before. He gestured around the chamber. Every species here has a different philosophy, different values, different ways of seeing the universe. But you came together to form the Council because you recognized that cooperation made you all stronger. Humanity wants to be part of that. Not to dominate it, not to control it, but to contribute to it in our own way. The Quillan delegate for real spoke up, their fur rippling with emotion. But your way involves deception, manipulation, psychological warfare. These are not the tools of cooperation. They're the tools of survival, Chen countered. And right now, the Council needs to survive before it can thrive. The Krathiks didn't respond to diplomacy or reason. They responded to strength and fear. Humanity provided both. But once this war is over, we're prepared to return to peace, to lock away the weapons we've unveiled and go back to being explorers, traders, and partners. Can you guarantee that? The Vextar delegate demanded. Chen smiled sadly. No. I can't guarantee anything, just like you can't guarantee that your species will always remain peaceful. All I can offer is our history. Yes, we fought wars. Yes, we developed terrible weapons. But we also learned from our mistakes. We created the United Nations, the World Peace Accords, the Treaty of Luna. We spent centuries learning to overcome our worst instincts. And when we were given the choice between conquest and cooperation with the Council, we chose cooperation. Shardmind's form pulsed with thought. Ambassador, the Council must deliberate on humanity's continued military operations. Some members have proposed that Earth's forces be placed under direct Council supervision, that human ships be assigned Council observers to ensure compliance with warfare regulations. Chen felt a flash of anger but controlled it. With respect, Chancellor, that would be a mistake. Our tactics work because we have the freedom to act quickly, to improvise, to do the unexpected. Adding layers of oversight would make us just another Council fleet, following the same predictable patterns that the Krathiks have learned to counter. Then what do you propose? Shardmind asked. Trust, Chen said simply. Trust that humanity knows what it's doing. Trust that we want peace as much as you do. Trust that when this war ends, we'll honor our commitments, and in return we'll trust you to judge us fairly, not on what we might do, but on what we actually do. The chamber fell silent. Chen could see the Council members exchanging glances, communicating through their various methods. Finally, a voice spoke up from an unexpected quarter. It was the representative from the Corvin Unity, a species that had barely participated in Council debates before. They were pacifists by nature, their culture built around harmony and nonviolence. Ambassador Chen, my people have never understood warfare. We find violence abhorrent in all its forms. When the Krathiks attacked, we evacuated our worlds rather than fight. We have watched this conflict with great sadness, mourning every death, every destroyed world. The Corvin's holographic form shimmered with emotion, but I must say this, humanity has saved us. Not just militarily, but philosophically. You have shown us that sometimes choosing not to fight is the same as choosing to let innocents die, that peace isn't always possible, and that protecting the defenseless requires strength. We do not like this lesson, but we recognize its truth. Other delegates began to murmur in agreement. Slowly, a consensus seemed to be forming. Shardmind raised his limb. The Council will vote on Ambassador Chen's proposal, not to place restrictions on humanity's military operations, but to extend our trust.
All in favor?
The vote was closer than Chen would have liked, but it passed. 32 in favor, 15 against. The motion carries, Shardmind announced. Humanity will continue to operate with full autonomy in its prosecution of the war against the Krathik Empire. However, this decision will be reviewed regularly. Should humanity prove unworthy of our trust, this authorization can and will be revoked. Chen bowed deeply. Thank you, Chancellor. The Council will not regret this decision. As he left the chamber, Chen couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility. Humanity had been given incredible power and freedom. The question was whether they could use it wisely. Whether they could win the war without losing themselves in the process. He thought about Captain Martinez, about Admiral Hawthorne, about all the humans who had fought and died to protect the Council. They'd done terrible things, used tactics that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. But they'd done it for the right reasons. At least Chen hoped they had. Because if humanity couldn't tell the difference between necessary violence and unnecessary cruelty, between defense and aggression, then maybe the Council's fears were justified after all.